going on, everybody? Hello, hello, happy Wednesday. Welcome to this week's episode of Trades Lady Happy Hour. I am on vacation, which is strange in and of itself. It's been about 5-6 years maybe since I've been on a real vacation, and I've been wanting to do a vacation for my birthday for many years. I finally did it this year, so I'm signing in from my lovely hotel room and taking a break from vacation to hang out with you guys and to interview this week's guest. And I'm really excited to meet her. She is a ASE master technician, been in the field for a very long time. And she is a trade school instructor, which we know there's, as much as there is a deficit of technicians in the world, there is even a bigger deficit of good trades teachers in the world. So we've had quite a few ladies interviewed on Trades Lady Happy Hour that do teaching, which is really cool to see. So we've got a whole new generation of shop class teachers coming up, and a lot of them are women, which is very awesome. And we're going to meet one of them today. Her name is Andrea, aka or maybe Andrea. I might be pronouncing that too fancy. I'm not sure. You're going to correct me once I get you on here, I'm sure. She is aka Hot Rod Tech Mom. So she's got a lot of really great experience to share. I have not met her in real life, so I'm excited to meet her tonight and hear about her journey along with you guys. So I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Those of you who are new to Trades Lady Happy Hour, welcome. Appreciate you taking some time out of your day to hang out. This is a Instagram live show where every week I introduce you to another phenomenal, fantastic, amazing, inspirational woman in the trades, whether technician, welder, fabricator, paint and body, you name it. We've had some kind of outlier trades as well, blacksmithing and metal sculpture and helicopter mechanics and airplane mechanics and upholsterers, any amazing women operating in the automotive and kind of adjacent spaces, rocking it in their fields. If you guys know anybody that I should be interviewing on this happy hour, please shoot me a message with their information. I'd love to meet them and potentially get them on one of these in a future week. We've been doing this for about 1.5 years. Definitely go back and check those out, especially if you're new here. And yeah, without further ado, I'm going to jump in and get Andrea on the line. Oh, you're sideways.
Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, no. How are you? Aside from being sideways.
I'm good.
Yay!
All right, I was trying to be festive.
I love it. I love it. I also love that okay, I'm all crooked. I'm using a really wonky tripod because I'm not at home. So, okay, well, part of my head's going to get cut off. That's fine. Anyway, I love how many people commented that you and I look like we could be related. And so we both have our fun colored hair and our fun glasses.
So I actually followed you with some of the stuff you did with Eric the car guy and shared some of that stuff with my students. And I'm like, she's cool. She has cool hair. And I'm like, I need to meet her. And then I got an email on Facebook. I'm like, no way. So I'm like, yeah, we need to do stuff together. And
yeah, definitely. I'm super excited to meet you. Introduce yourself to everybody real quick, just what you do now, and then we're going to go back in history and I'll ask you some questions about your past.
Okay, great. So I'm Andrea Strommen and I teach high school automotive. I started the brand new school in August 2020 during the pandemic. Very weird year. But I joined Atlanta Public Schools with their new career academy to open up the only automotive program in the Atlanta Public Schools district.
Wow.
So I had been teaching tech college, but I've been with them since August of 2020. We're on our 2nd year, so we're doing pretty great. We have an amazing facility and just definitely a lot of potential for the students. So it's a free program for students. There's no fees. There's no student fees.
That's phenomenal.
The district covers all of it, and there's a lot of different pathways. So basically they come in to prep for going straight to work, or they come in and prep to going to like another institution or tech college, or, you know, maybe just learn a hobby and then go off to university.
Yeah. So it's a new program. You started with them right off the bat. Were you part of forming the program?
No,
Kind of, sort of.
the Atlanta Tech College was actually a big part of like doing that, because there was like a couple of years of planning. So
I bet.
that I followed, and then I was like, "Ooh, automotive teacher opening. This is where I need to be."
Nice.
So mostly what I formed was like, okay, here's your shop, and there wasn't much there. It was just there's some lifts, there's a little bit of equipment, and then I had to go in and fill the rest and get, you know, the foundations of what we're going to be, what should we buy, where should we spend our money, spend our money on, because, you know, not everything needs to be Snap-on, but, you know, sometimes we still need the Snap-on.
Well, and Snap-on's really awesome about supporting educational programs too. Like they're all about next gen stuff. So they tend to have support for that.
So at the school, what I tried to make sure is that we're set up for teaching the DIY level, and then teaching what you need to be successful, like your first 6 months to a year. And
Nice.
then what does it look like to be a master tech? So we've got those like baseline tools, then the step up, and then like we have the Snap-on Zeus. Like we need to see the ultimate.
Yeah.
Like what does it look like to have $100 tool versus a $10,000 tool? What's the difference? Why should we not buy this right away? Why should we wait? You know, so a lot of it's like building them for success, but showing them their potential.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers, and it's not just about being really good at learning how to do brakes or tires, or drop a transmission or pull an engine. There's so much more to that we do at the academy in the program. So
That's phenomenal. And you came from a teaching at college level background, right?
Yeah, I taught at Georgia Piedmont Technical College.
Okay. That's got to be an interesting switch, because college level, you're right, you're doing much more preparing for the workforce, whereas in high school, you're really in charge of introducing them and shaping what their expectations are going to be and whether this is something they want to go into or not.
Exactly. And then if they decide they don't want to go into it, they're still with me for the year. So then we still have to keep that motivation going and be like, okay, how can you still use this? So then we go into, we want to learn how to drive a car, right? But the tech college level, I mean, you still see a lot of that. I don't know if this is what I want. So there's really not that much difference than the Career Academy, because the Career Academy is students that are like, they could be cars are cool, or they could be my friend wanted to be in this, or I want to get greasy, or I have no idea, but this looks easy. You have a lot, there's a huge variety. And you have the same thing walks into the door at tech colleges, where some people are like, I thought this was something way different. And then you might gear them towards, you know, hey, you have a great smile, great personality, you're bubbly, maybe service writer, maybe parts associate, or, you know, you can gear them towards another skill, like maybe body shop adjuster, you know, there's a whole lot of different layers. So we teach the full thing, but most of the hands-on work is going to be geared towards techs.
Yeah.
But, you know, we still do you still have to learn how to teach your service writer stuff. So they learn all the different positions. But the tech school we also did at the tech school Career Academy dual enrollment. So I did help out with that 2 years.
Okay.
That's what kind of got me looking for the Career Academy. I was like, oh, all these teachers are like so laid back and no one's burned out, and this is so great. So I'm like, ooh, and then, you know, decided I found an academy. And I'm like, summers off is amazing.
I know, right? I'm regretting, back in the day, my old shop teacher, when I went to high school, he was getting ready to retire, and he wanted to give me his shop. He wanted to recommend me to take over his position. And I was like, I'm too young. I don't have enough experience. I don't want to be a teacher. Now I'm like, summer's off. That would have been really nice. I should have done that. And then they canceled the program, so it's gone now, which totally sucks. But You said it's the only tech program in high school in Atlanta?
Yeah, for the Atlanta public schools. So we're the city schools separate from Fulton County schools.
That's crazy that there is only one program within the public schools in Atlanta. I mean, we hear about these programs going away, but to hear that statement by itself is insane to hear.
Yeah, there was an automotive program with South Atlanta, and it had only run for a couple of years. It was sponsored, I think it was sponsored through like Kaufman,
Okay.
I believe. And then it only ran a couple of years, and I'm not sure why it shut down. So then that was back in like 2017 or so. So all that equipment was just sitting there. So I have some of that equipment. Whatever wasn't obsolete, I have that stuff.
Wow.
But
So
then,
is it like a split day for the kids? Do they go to like a homeschool for half the day and then go to you for the other half the day? Is that
yeah,
how that works? So
yeah,
people from all over different public schools can be part of this.
yeah. So it's all the high schools in Atlanta, and then they get
Okay.
bused to us for 2 hours.
Okay.
And so they either get, they come to us for breakfast and then 2 hours, and then they go back to school, and then they have lunch at their home school,
Okay.
and then they have their other classes, or they do
Vice versa.
vice versa. But we have one morning block, and then after lunch, then we have an afternoon block.
Crazy. How has not attendance, what's the word I'm looking for? Signups, registrations for it been? Has there been a lot of interest in these programs?
I had a wait list in the beginning of the year, in August, but we do, it still kind of looks similar to college, where there is like what we call a drop ad period. So students can change their mind, they can change and decide they want to do a different career pathway, or sometimes students realize, oh, whoops, I don't have enough high school credits to do this year, I need to wait. So then they might go back to their home school and just take some of their like general ed classes and catch up.
Gotcha.
So there are requirements to get into the program, and then it is a lottery program. So they have to maintain, I think it's like a C plus average. It's like a 2.5 GPA at their home school.
That's
and
awesome.
then they have to keep up their grades at their home school throughout the year. Otherwise, they're at risk of being pulled out.
That's good to hear.
So
I like that.
There's a lot of accountability. You can't just show up for your career class and then go home. You still have to keep up.
That's good to hear.
It's an incentive to keep them on track for graduation. So we get more high school graduates out there.
Absolutely. And it's awesome to hear that you have a wait list to be a part of the program. That's huge, right? Like we talk all the time within the industry about how there aren't enough techs and kids aren't attracted to this kind of work anymore. And like, I don't think that's true. Clearly, there's kids interested in this work. Like somewhere we're losing them in the industry, but it's not because they're not interested.
Yeah.
So I want to go back in time a little bit before we dig in too much, because I've got a ton of questions. I think you will be able to offer a ton of great insight into technicians and tech training and just your experiences. But I want to go back in time a little bit and hear your story. Tell me how you got started in all of this world and how you wound up in the teaching side of things.
Oh, wow. That's a long time ago. So basically senior year of high school, I moved to Georgia and didn't really want to do the high school thing. It just really wasn't for me. So, I mean, I was a high school dropout that got my GED, and so not off to a super start, like, but then I just woke up one day and I was like, I need to go to college for something. I was like 19, and I was like, hey, I remember, and then I went to Chattahoochee Tech, and I said, they have automotive stuff. And I called my best friend up. I'm from Wisconsin. I called my best friend up in Wisconsin, and I was like, what do you think about this? Like, I don't really know how to fix them, but I did tinker with like motorcycles and stuff, and I always hung out with all the boys in school, and I thought they were so cool. Like in junior high and high school, and I'm like, so I worked on stuff like helping people with their like cutlasses, and I would like read manuals.
Just for funsies?
Yeah, I mean, I had engineers for grandfathers. So one
Oh,
grandfather was a mechanical engineer, and he had a Mustang and an El Camino. And
nice.
the other grandfather is electrical engineer, and he had a Corvette. So car
Okay.
stuff was like there. And my grandfather was 25 years Society of Automotive Engineers.
Oh, wow.
So he's since passed. I have his plaque on my office wall. Like, I like to keep it. I'm like,
I
hey,
love that.
Grandpa. But
That's awesome.
I really just woke up one day, wanted to go to college for something, and I was already like really good with my hands. Like I was fixing musical instruments, so I fixed
Oh,
band instruments.
interesting.
Yeah, I have like a music side. So art and music use the same side of your brain as cars. So a lot of people don't know that.
I
Um,
did not know that, but it makes
so like
sense.
one of my automotive instructors had a music degree, and one of the other instructors had a fine arts degree.
Interesting.
So back when I went to college for it. So I went to college for it, and then I just kept applying for jobs. And in 2003, that was like I kept walking in and to different shops, and people were like, "What are you doing here? Do you want to sell tires up front?" I'm like, "I don't know anything about the construction of a tire. I have no idea. I want to go in the back." And they're like, "No, you mean like up front?" I'm like, "I want to be the one back there." And one shop gave me a chance, and then it definitely was really hard. It was really, really hard. But I did work at a few shops that gave me some chances.
Can I
And
ask you, without, we're never supposed to ask a lady her age, but can you give me an idea of what time, what year range this is? Was this in the 90s? When was
oh,
this?
I was 19 when I first started in the automotive industry in 2003.
Okay. So yeah, around the same time that I was really trying to get my first jobs as well, like
Yeah,
a couple of years prior, but you experienced the same thing I did.
it was really hard. And then I would, as you get through like different managers, some managers would let you do work, and then I'd work at a shop and I'd be starved out at work. But I mean, I just like I kept printing like little words for my computer. Like, this is before smartphones. Like I printed in Word and taped words to my toolbox, and I'd put like perseverance and stuff. And
I love
I'm
it.
like, all right, we're gonna make it through today. And then I started getting better as a tech and didn't have to have as much help. Or I would make a couple friends at a shop, and then I'd have that like go to, hey, help me get this transmission out. And I got thrown the giant trucks. I
Oh, wow.
mean, I was like super tiny then, and they were like, "Oh yeah, here's a 2500 HD. Go put tires on it." While
Was it like a
this,
testing you thing to
yeah,
like try to make you fail?
it was almost every single day, and I just said, "You can't make me fail. Like this is not going to happen." I never went and cried to HR. I was like, "Nope." I went in the locker room and cried by myself. Like no one saw my tears. But I really just stuck at it. And then eventually, 2003, I called up my automotive instructor and I said, I am burned out. I was on my lunch break. I said, I can't take this anymore. And he's like, have you thought about teaching? And I said, what? He's like, well, hold on. He's like, we have a female instructor here now. She needs to talk to you. So she talked to me, and she's like, gave me some tips and tricks on how she was. Like she was like, no makeup, no earrings. I did all that stuff, and she's like, try to be as least girly as possible. And then when I started teaching, I got to go back and be a girl, but then I'm still doing all the car stuff. So I wear like different automotive earrings like every day. My students are all like, what are you wearing today? I'll have like race flags or like drag racing trees. And
Nice.
I have like fuses, like it's actual fuses.
That's awesome.
So I get to do the fun stuff now, but really it was my college instructor from when I got my automotive associate's degree. He pushed me, and then I went to an interview to be a part-time dual enrollment instructor for high school kids at Chattahoochee Tech in Marietta. And I was like halfway through the interview and they're like, can you start tomorrow? Because classes start tomorrow. And I was like,
Oh my God.
what? I was like, do I get training? Oh yeah, we'll have somebody shadow you. So I was like, somebody helped me for about 5 minutes and said, have a great day. And I was like, they handed me the textbook and left me with a class of students. And this is in like 2006.
That's amazing.
I was like, I am so scared.
That's terrifying. How did you survive that?
Oh, they were like, you'll be great. You'll be great. You got this. So I kind of just went back on how did my instructors start off introducing things to me. And then I kind of did it how they did it for a while until I developed my own thing. Like what's good, what's not, what's really boring. How do you read the room? So I really just kind of learned slowly. And from that part-time job, I got a full-time job teaching high school automotive.
Nice.
And then during that big recession in 2010, they let go a lot of those extracurricular programs. So I was one of those teachers that was let go. So then I went back to the field for about a year. And then again, going back to my tech school, one of my automotive instructors from college was a part-time technician at Pep Boys. And I went over there and I was like, hey, I'm going to work here. And they hired me. And I was like, I think my instructor used to work here or be a trainer or something. And somebody remembered him, called him up and said, dude, one of your students is actually one of our master techs. Somebody learned something. And so then all of a sudden I hear my name on the PA and he calls the shop. And then he pulls up to the shop and he's like, come teach college with me.
Interesting.
And I was like, what? And he's like, you taught high school, you're good, and you're here as a master tech. So Pep Boys at that shop I was at had a separate shop for the techs that don't need to be micromanaged and watched. So they let all the master techs work in the back, takes away a lot of drama and stuff.
Interesting.
So it was great. So yeah, he pulled me out of that shop, and then I started teaching tech college August of 2011.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, so everything kind of went back to like all those connections and like so rapport is a big thing. I tell people rapport is a huge thing because if I didn't have that back then, how would somebody from my class in 2004 at tech college, teenager me or 20-year-old me,
right,
remember me in 2011, 7 years later, and go, oh yeah, she needs to come work for me.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's hard when you take all like the different parts and pieces of what you've just said, right? You had all these negative experiences, challenges getting into your first jobs, getting a lot of no's, and yet still having to find that way to build rapport and keep good connections and not burn bridges, because everything is about not burning bridges. This industry is so small. I mean, it's huge, but it's so small. And how, like, that's the number one thing, is not burning bridges in this industry. And how do you kind of negotiate that when we're having these negative experiences as women coming into the industry? And I think a lot of women today are still dealing with that. You talked about not going to HR and crying in the dressing room and all of that. What is your recommendations or advice to women who are getting into the industry now and how they navigate all of that? Because it's still happening.
Well, I think so. I've tried working at different shops and I used a lot of different approaches. I worked at a shop and used the approach of like, be the quiet, silent type that doesn't socialize or talk to anybody. And that doesn't work. And then I was the type that tried to like talk to everybody and be everybody's friend, and that doesn't work. So really, I think it's about inner confidence. Know yourself. Like, okay, what's your routine? And then just stick to it and don't let someone push you off. So I worked at shops where I would go get my morning coffee. And again, this is before like Keurigs. This is when you went to your styrofoam cup to the horrible 3-year-old or 3-hour-old coffee in the room with the powdered stuff. Like, it's so much better now. So you actually had to go to the community room and then go grab your coffee. And I would be walking back, and then I would get cornered and told, women don't belong here. Go home. And I'm like, well, whatever, dude. You know, I was hired. Like, and I just kept on walking. I would go grab parts from the parts counter, and then I would get cornered. And they're like, you're stealing other people's work. I'm like, no, I work here too. Thank you. Goodbye. I mean, I think a lot of it is having internal confidence.
Yeah.
And then dealing with those battles and complaining outside of work. Like, figure out what, like, I overanalyze everything. I'm like a crazy anxiety person. So I'm an overthinker. So I'm like replaying everything I did. What could I have done better? But I think not going in there and verbalizing, I'm entitled to equal workspace. Like right now, everybody's voicing equality, but I would not join a male-dominated industry walking in with, I'm entitled to be here. I would not walk in with that attitude. I would still go in with, I'm a team player, and I would still go in with, I know my stuff. I don't know everything, but so I would just try to just own yourself. Like, so if you're a beginner, just own it. You're a beginner. Hey, can I watch you do that? I've gone to shops where I'm like, hey, I've never dropped a differential chunk out before. Can you split this ticket with me? And then so I would split the flat rate with somebody, and then I'd be hoping for like 50-50. But then at the end, if the tech would like go tell the writer, no, I get 75, she gets 25%, I'd say, okay, thank you for letting me watch you. Because again, that instructor that grabbed me to pull me out for college, when he taught me in school, he said, you pay for your education. Yeah. He said, whether that's in the shop and you're taking a pay cut, you're paying for your education. You're paying for your training. So in the back of my mind, I'm hearing like, okay, Mr. Steve Bullock, all right. He told you it's okay to take that pay cut. You don't have to make all the money right away.
Yeah. You're
still learning. So I watched one, and then you just get really good at observing. So I did split a lot of tickets, lose a lot of money. I think the first year I worked in automotive, I made like less than $10,000. It was so bad.
And we wonder why we're losing people from this industry, right?
But, I mean, back then, your average entry level or low level technician was only making about 25, and I only made about 10. Yeah. So it wasn't enough. I mean, I had other jobs to kind of support it, but I mean,
which is crazy. I mean, that's a whole nother tangent we could go down. I
say it has to be about what the job is, not what you make right now when you're getting started. It cannot be about the money. The money will follow you. It'll show up, it'll come around, or you'll learn where you shouldn't be. Like if you're at a corporate shop or a retail shop, and then you're like, oh, I hate this. And then you go to like a mom and pop shop or an independent shop, right, or something that's like a niche area. And then you're like, oh, this is where I belong. So you're at least going to learn where you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Versus going in and being like, I need to make all the money right now.
No, you're definitely right. And I think that's a really smart point. Very, very important point about you have to pay for your education. Like that's huge. And it is, you're going to pay for it one way or another. But I think that idea of that first couple of years, you're not going to make a crap ton of money. And that's just reality. And I feel like that's something that we've lost in society in general for like every career, right? Like people are getting out of school and starting their careers and expecting to be making all of the money. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. You start out entry level, like doesn't matter.
Like in 2004, like I went from one shop making, I mean, it wasn't much, but it was about $14.50 an hour, to go to a different shop, and they were like, we'll offer you 11. And I said 11, and they're like, 6 months training. After that, we'll talk about it. And I'm like,
wow.
All right. So I blew that 6 months out of the water though. And I got that 6 months training cut down to 3 months. Just because of who I was as a technician and how I was again, with like rapport, and then how naturally mechanical stuff comes to me. I just told them I'll prove them I don't need 6 months.
Okay.
So I took that huge pay cut. I mean, for someone in their young 20s, like, or teenager-ish, late teens, that's a big deal. $3.50 is a huge deal.
Oh, that's huge for anybody. Yeah.
So I took it. I said, okay, where's my growth potential at the shop where I'm at? Where's my growth potential at this shop? You know, what's worth it? And then I just kept falling back on, you got to pay to learn. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's really the only kind of thing that kept me going. It's like, one day I'll find the shop where people leave me alone and just let me fix cars.
Right? Isn't that all we want? Don't corner me and tell me I don't belong here. I just want to do my job.
Yeah.
So you said that there was a moment where it was kind of, you were frustrated, you were burnt out, you called your old shop teacher. What led up to that kind of, I've had enough of this?
It was a lot of the go home, and it was a lot of tickets that got routed to me that were just generalized multi-point inspections. And I'm like, at the time I was hired to be the differential driveline specialist. And I'm like, where's all my chassis stuff? And I'm putting wiper blades on cars. I'm putting blinkers on cars. And I'm like, and then, you know, it was like, or if I was doing something and I helped another tech, then, you know, like there were techs that needed to borrow my tools, then they wouldn't give my tools back. And then I'm like, well, I can't do my jobs. And then they're like, well, she can't do her job. She doesn't have the right tools to be here. Like,
because you took them, damn it.
Yeah, like it was horrible. So I'm like, a lot of it was way too much of just, I was young. I started teaching automotive at 23. I wasn't much older than the high school kids. But I was like, I need a break from the shop. I can't do this. I mean, I tried working at like hot rod shops. I did some body work at some shops. So I just kind of got hired to, you know, work on a few cars here and there. I mean, it was super fun, but there's not steady money. So it's like when there's a customer, when you're doing a resto project. So, I mean, I did some of that stuff, and, you know, it got me in like the popular hot rodding magazine and stuff. Nice. back in the day, but that wasn't where anyone's going to make a big career. So I asked him where I could go, where I could just be myself. And he's like, you have a lot of knowledge, and I already had a bunch of ASEs, and the only thing you need to start out being an automotive instructor is to be certified. Yeah. So to be a high school instructor, you just have to be certified. Well, back then you had to be certified in what you were teaching. Now, fair. Any automotive instructors, it's master certified required to maintain at all times. So, so I went in, I think I had like 6 ASEs, and I started teaching, and then I didn't feel like a grease monkey. I felt like, oh, I'm kind of more like a trainer. So do you miss it ever? Do you miss working on cars full time? I work on cars all the time. Okay, fair point. Fair point. Well, I mean, I don't miss the flat rate, but then again, I love the rush of the flat rate because you're like trying to beat the clock, and I'm super competitive internally with myself. When I work on stuff now, oh God, if you were to time me on them, like I'm probably talking and teaching through it and right. Showing people and demonstrating, like the flat rate is out the window. Yes. But we do little time trials in my classes where I'm like, okay, at the end of this job, it took me this long to we went through it, we talked through it. And then I tell the students, like, this is what this job actually pays. And there were 3 of you and it took you an hour. So let's figure out your pay. Oh man, I gotta get back. So then they learn, so I'm giving them the perspectives. Yeah. So back in the day, I really, before I became a teacher, I really thought I wanted to be one of those corporate shop trainers and teach all that theory and then help people learn. Interesting. And then the corporate shops I worked for, those trainers were like, hey, hey guys, this is your next trainer. So they saw it in me, and then they kind of planted that seed, and I'm like, this would be really cool. You get to wear a little bit cleaner clothes. You're still doing the hands-on. You have to be able to do it, but then you're teaching people that want to learn it. So I thought I was going to be a trainer, and then I became a teacher.
I love it. I'm interested. You said that you had the corporate folks recognizing in you this ability. Were these the same places where you were getting kind of given the awful jobs and being cornered? Okay.
No, the corporate shops are where I liked to be. I worked at 2 corporate shops. I worked at Sears and I worked at CarMax, and both of them were great. I mean, there was some stuff like under the table stuff, very minor, but the big stuff happened where there was not any corporate backing.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Like I had a similar experience as you. I worked at a small dealership and had kind of the same thing you had with my dispatcher giving me all of the crappy work and then being like, see, she can't make hours. See, she's no good, right? She can't handle any of the bigger stuff because he wouldn't give me any of the bigger stuff. And then switch to a bigger corporate store. And even though I didn't like feeling like just a small piece in this big puzzle, the computer was the dispatcher, and the computer isn't sexist, right?
Yeah, that was the biggest difference between corporate and not corporate.
Yeah.
There's no one in that chair.
Yeah. And there are some great independent shops, don't get me wrong, but especially back then, it was few and far between. I think, and a lot of women, I think, are still dealing with this in the smaller shops, having trouble finding the good ones. And let's be honest, it's not just women, it's guys too getting into the field, like finding the good shop that's going to give them a chance as a newbie, which is the hardest thing.
I go around to a lot of shops and I talk to people, and I'm not afraid to tell them how it is. Like, I'm not afraid to, like, I walk in there and I'm like, okay, how do you guys feel about tattoos? Tell me, are you going to hire a student that has tattoos? Where can they have tattoos? I mean, I screen for everything that the student potentially may have already or might be thinking of. So I ask them the hard questions when I go in as the teacher. And then I'm like, got any females working here? How many, can I see them? Can I meet them? Like,
have you met many?
I've met a few senior master techs or people that were almost senior masters at Ford. I've met some with the Hennessy Automotive Group.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I've worked with Hennessy, like partnered with them. They've done a lot of donations of, like, they let me pick through their scrap piles. I'm like, can I pick some show and tell stuff that I can take apart?
Hey, I'll take scraps. That's awesome.
They'll give me some, like, engines that have, like, spun bearings. They're like, we'll just keep the core on it. You can take it. But then they hire some of the students that I've had over the years. And then they're super, super supportive about all of them. They still allow their female techs to go through the training to become that upper level where they're called like a world master or a senior master, where they're ASC and manufacturer.
Okay. That's very cool. So you've met quite a few other lady techs out there.
Yeah, a small handful, but yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about that later because I want to be connected to them.
Okay.
Do you get women in your class often as students?
Usually a few. This year I have one. I had more when I taught tech school, and I will put you in touch with her. One of them actually opened up her own shop here in Georgia.
Nice.
So I'll pass her info on to you. So I help try to get people her way.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, you need someone to come mobile mechanic stuff? She'll come to you. Like,
awesome.
So I usually would have a small amount. So if I had a class of 10, there might be one girl.
Okay.
Sometimes two. It really depended on, like, the semester at the college. But sometimes one semester we had like 6.
Wow.
And it wouldn't necessarily, because at the college you're with different instructors. So 5 of us. So I would actually go sit in as a guest speaker for the other instructors' classes and then go talk to them about diversity in the workforce. What can people ask you? What can they not ask you in the interview? Like, back in the day, before I was even working in a shop, I tried to apply for, like, a parts position at one of those retail places, and I got asked, like, can you even lift a battery? And I'm like, what's your lift requirement? And I'm like, they can't ask you that. So then I tell people now, I'm like, they cannot ask you those questions.
Yeah.
Like,
And yet they do all the
I'm
time.
like, these are things that you can just turn back around
Right.
and then think about it. Do you really want to work there when they're interviewing you like this?
Right. Exactly.
Like go find somewhere else, or just put in the back of your mind, this is temporary.
Yeah.
So
how do the rest of your students, I mean, especially when you started out, I mean, you're older now, you have a bigger age difference between yourself and your students. When you started out, you said you were just a few years older than them. How did you handle that with teaching? How were the students with that?
I had to learn what classroom management was. I had to learn some strategies of how to make sure they listened. But really, I mean, I kind of put it as I was like a drill sergeant with a sense of humor. So I kept the rules of the shop very strict, but I never told them that we couldn't do hands-on. So I never told them no, but I made them wear safety glasses, and I made them work together. But I said, we can do hands-on all the way. If you don't listen, we're going to the book. So, I mean, we still did the book stuff, but there's a way to make it fun and not fun.
Yes.
So really, I mean, we just did hands-on all day. So it was literally like running an 8-hour shop. We're doing brake jobs on teachers' cars, employees' cars. So we had plenty of stuff to work on. So we just stayed busy. And then a lot of them, you know, went off to be either mechanical engineers, or they went off to work at a shop. And they didn't have to go to tech school. They didn't have to pay out of pocket, or try to find like one that was covered by Hope Scholarship for Georgia, because Hope pays for most of the Georgia's tech schools.
Oh.
So Georgia's a little different. If you graduate from a high school in Georgia, basically your first degree is paid for by the Hope Scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So people that want to go out of state, so like tech school or going for an associate's degree or an diploma program for automotive is almost free.
Wow.
You don't get much for textbooks, so you usually have to pay out of pocket for some textbooks, but you'll get like a textbook stipend, and then your tuition gets paid.
Wow.
For tech school.
That's incredible.
That's Georgia's thing. The Georgia lottery pays for it.
That's amazing. I know Tennessee has something similar. That's phenomenal, though. I thought Tennessee was the only one that was doing anything that progressive, but that's fantastic to hear.
Yeah, so that's like we kind of tell people, if you think you want to go to UTI and you're really insistent on going somewhere private, like the NEDC, the diesel one and the collision one, or the motorcycle one, start on that Hope Scholarship one here. Get your feet wet. Make sure you understand the classes. Make sure it's really what you want to do before you go spend the money. So maybe take 1 or 2 classes here, then decide. And a lot of times they stay here and then they go there and do something more specialized. Like I had a student that went to like the NASCAR school in Charlotte. So they went from like UTI straight to Nashville.
Nice.
Like UTI or the Nashville one, they pulled him out of UTI.
Oh.
So he went from high school automotive to NASCAR.
That's awesome.
So
that's fun. So you've been teaching for how long now?
Since 2006.
Wow.
That was 15 years.
That's exciting. That's so cool.
That's a lot.
Any like favorite success stories of your students?
Oh, there's a lot, I guess. I used to write them up and turn them in so that they could be like blasted on like the little newsletters and stuff. But Robin Johnson, she's married now. Don't ask me her new last name. I don't know. She's gonna hate me for that. But she's the one that opened up female-owned shop.
Nice.
In Georgia. And there's some students that kept in touch with me like over the years. Like I would see something on Facebook, they'd ask me a car question, And then they're like, you know, you were my inspiration. And I'm like, I had no idea.
Isn't that the best?
So a lot of them, it's more like some of them started out, there were some students that came in and they might have been homeless at the tech college. They might have been homeless. They might have been single parents and homeless. And then you help them get their start to get a job. And then you help them be successful at that job. So a lot of about being a teacher isn't just, here's all the automotive stuff, absorb it into your brain. It doesn't work like that. So you're teaching the person. So it was like, they would come to you like, hey, there was this conflict at work. How do I do this better? Or there was this customer that was so angry, or there was a car that stumped me. How do I diagnose this? Or how do I talk to this? And then you help them through that problem. And so you basically are helping people be problem solvers on their own. And
How to life better. It's because it's not just cars. Like you said, it really isn't. That's so important and so huge. And as a teacher, for you to recognize that, like, because so many don't, right? They're like, I'm here to teach automotive, and that's it. But it's life. It's how to be an adult, how to handle crappy situations, you know, male or female. And I think particularly for the women, but how do you handle those crappy work environments, or the crappy jobs, or the crappy customers? Because you're going to get them no matter where you go, right?
Yeah. So I love the stories where it's like they came from nothing. They showed up at the college going, all right, I don't know where I'm going, but I need to go somewhere. And then we're like, the only way is up now. So, I mean, that that's kind of what we did. We just helped people get their start, and then they could make the decision as to what shop they belong in, or if they belong in automotive. So that's really a lot of them. The ones that open up their own shop are great. Like, so they would come back and visit us at the shop, or sorry, at the tech school. And then they would bring us, like, sometimes they would bring us like little Christmas cards or something and say, thank you for everything. You're the reason why I'm successful today. So we, you know, there were 5 of us originally that were instructors at the tech college. And we had several students that would come in and do something for Christmas. Or there were years where we sponsored students for Christmas, just the automotive teachers. Just privately, we would sponsor someone that we felt like really needed help with making Christmas happen.
That's awesome.
And so we would do that, or we would do the fundraisers to like help sponsor Thanksgiving.
I love that. That's awesome. Because you're so right. Like it is, you're taking care of people, right? You're really raising them up as adults, and it's not just the book work. It's not just the hands-on work, and you become a part of their life. We need more teachers like you. There are not enough.
There's a lot of like investment in it, like emotionally, but you still have to figure out how to not let it weigh you down. And so that took me a couple years. One of the instructors I met when I first started teaching says, if you survive the first 3 years, you're in it for life. And he told me that my second year. And I was like, what? You're crazy. And
was he right?
Yes. Now when I see new teachers and I'm like, oh, you're going to change the world. Oh. Okay, I love your inspiration. Come find me in 3 years. Let's see if you're holding on to that. So, yeah, because it's all about figuring out, can you hold on to that? Like, are there enough good moments in your job that make all those struggles and all those, like, all the extra stuff that has nothing to do with teaching, like the paperwork, the meetings, the deadlines, like all of that stuff, the teaching has to give you enough satisfaction to make all the hours that you sit there till 10 o'clock or midnight or later, like, has to make that worth it.
Yeah, the stuff that they don't tell you about, right?
Yeah.
And that's not just teaching, that's as a technician too, on the line, like, or really any job. You see the glorious parts of it. You don't necessarily see all the drudgery and the background and the behind the scenes stuff. And you're right. You have to love that thing enough to get through the rest of the crap. So Ugh, I have a lot of questions. I'm deciding which direction I want to go down with you, but because we only have like 10 more minutes. But since we're running low on time, I guess let's go this route. You see a lot of students, you're working with a lot of folks that are going out into the world. We touched briefly on talking about tools and which kind you need. Like, where should we know that technicians aren't getting paid a ton of money when they're first getting into the field? They're not going to make the big bucks right away. Where should, in your opinion, a technician, a new technician getting into the field, where should they spend their money? Where should they spend their time? What are their priorities? What advice do you give your students when they're entering out into the world?
I I would take a look at, well, I guess it depends. If you're someone that's in tech school or in a training program, you get those tool incentives through Snap-on and Matco.
Mm-hmm.
I started out with one of the apprentice sets from Snap-on as a student at Tech College.
Yeah.
But then I bought some additional things like the longer flex head ratchets. Buy yourself a 12-inch flex head ratchet.
My favorite.
That is your number one tool. Like all the ratchet sets you get, they're gonna come with these little things. I'm like, you're never gonna break those caliper bolts with those. And then I would say, like, you don't need to buy the Snap-on electric impacts.
Right.
Start with, go to Northern Tool, go get those Ingersoll Rand heavy duty impact guns. They're 6.5 pounds.
I love my Ingersoll Rand impacts.
So I mean, they make them. They have them in titanium. They have them in lightweight or carbon now. Yeah. But go spend $100 on your first impact, and then decide. Yeah. And then a lot of the ones we recommended were like, go to Home Depot, go get Milwaukee impacts. Yeah. They're like half the price of Snap-on. Until you get to where you're making the kind of money that you can buy the Snap-on one, don't make payments on the Snap-on gun. Like, don't make payments on them. But I started out with an apprentice set. So if you can't afford the Snap-on stuff, you know, I did a lot of Craftsman stuff in the beginning. And a lot of it was like hand-me-down stuff. Yeah.
Garage sales are great.
Garage sales. I'm like a super online person. So I'm an eBay finder. So yes. Once I research what I want to find, then I'm like looking it up. Okay, is it a better deal at Amazon or eBay or Walmart or Target? Right. Or, I mean, I'm like comparing all of them, because every place now is an online retailer. Yeah. So you can buy almost anything from anywhere. For the students at the school, I do a lot of Carlisle tools. Napa Auto Parts has state contracts, so it's super easy for education institutions to purchase through them. Nice. So I get a lot of Carlisle stuff and Gear Wrench brand stuff for the students, and then do the Napa store brand like roll carts. Get yourself a basic roll cart. A lot of dealerships now are supplying the toolboxes. They are lining their walls because they want their shop to look uniform. So like Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, Cadillac. A lot of them, like more and more. A ton of them. And then the only thing you can bring with you is your roll cart. Yeah. And sometimes not even that. Yeah. Well, yes. Well, a lot of them I see people have like the little plastic ones or the open ones with no lids. And then some people can have like any cart, but yeah, don't focus on the toolbox. No, definitely. The toolbox should be your last thing. My first toolbox was like $300 from Sears. It was like the display model on sale with Craftsman Club discount. Yeah. Like, don't spend more than $300 on your first box. I totally made the mistake of buying a big box. When I was starting out, it was my first dealership job. It was not one that supplied the toolboxes. And I got suckered in because they had a purple toolbox, and I was all about that life. But mine's purple. Mine is purple. I got the Matco one. It's like 6 feet tall. Mine was a Matco too. And everybody kept telling me like, oh, that's a girl's color. And I'm like, really? You think Matco is making an entire color just for girls? All like 1.5% of us at the time? I don't think so. But I did. I spent all this money and I regretted it, because then my next job was at a dealership that supplied toolboxes. And I had nowhere to put it. I lived in an apartment. I couldn't keep the toolbox. So I wound up selling it for half of what I paid for it. And, you know, so especially if you think you're going to go dealership life, don't buy a toolbox until you need to. I did my toolbox, the MatGo box, through the VOTEC program while I was a student. So I was like full-time through that associate's degree, and then I started working, and then I dropped down to like part-time. So I ended up trying to get the, better cost. So I bought the big giant one for like half of the price.
Yeah.
So, but that's the only box. Like, I've never upgraded it. I've just added roll carts, table with drawers.
Yeah.
I've added to it.
They're like Legos. You just keep building it bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So yeah, like a lot of the stuff, like, let me see, eBay sells stuff. I thought Craftsman was great. The Craftsman chrome stuff is really close to MatGo.
Yeah.
Like, so the polished stuff.
So the moral of the story is don't spend a ton on tools unless you have to. But there are a handful of really important ones to get. And
yeah. Find your basic apprentice set. An apprentice set's gonna cover tires, brakes, oil changes. Maybe add a serpentine belt tool in there, and then you're a decent air impact. Unless you're going mobile, and then go buy you a
battery powered. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had my first shop foreman at my my first job gave me the very wise advice of, if you have to borrow my tool more than once, go buy it.
Yeah. That was, that still exists. Yeah.
That's
what I tell my students. And I'm like, yeah, if you borrow it twice, it's your turn to buy it.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's great when you can find somebody in the shop who's willing to loan you their stuff. So don't abuse it. If you use it more than once, go buy it. I love it. All right, we have 3 minutes left. First of all, is there anything that we haven't covered that you've been dying to talk about or want to talk about, or that people should know about? This is your soapbox moment.
Well, okay. I'm looking for virtual mentors for my students.
Okay.
There's a couple extra steps, like Atlanta Public Schools requires a background check.
Okay.
It's a really simple background check. We pay for it. I have like forms, so I'm looking for virtual support, and maybe if you're in the Atlanta area, then you could come be a guest speaker, but I'm totally comfortable with virtual. I have a giant 72-inch TV in my classroom. We can put you huge on the screen.
Nice.
But one thing that the Academy does is send virtual mentors, and I'm trying to do a 30-minute session once a month between now and April, twice a day. So I'm trying to get multiple people so that, because it's a volunteer time, you don't have to come in twice a day. To just our students, like I can pick out 4 or 5 students and they can ask questions.
Nice.
Either talk about shop life, talk about where you went. Obviously somebody who likes the industry, we want to be supportive of the industry. We don't need, there is a place and time for critics, but not in my high school classroom.
Totally get it. So if anybody's watching this or watches it in the future and hears this, how do they reach out to you? What's the best way? Anybody out there wants to be a mentor virtually or otherwise, and can lend insight to her students, listen up, because she's going to tell you how to reach out to her.
All right. So you can send me a message on Instagram, Hot Rod Tech Mom. Also, I'm on Facebook, Andrea Strommen. I've got 2 different Facebooks. Message either one of them. And then you can also email me at andrea.strommen@apsk12. That's Atlanta Public Schools, apsk12.org.
Nice.
Send me an email. I'm on Facebook all the time. I check my Instagram. Usually the easiest way to get me is on one of these.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, hopefully you get some cool mentors out of this. I so appreciate you hanging out with me for the last hour. My final, because we're already over time by a minute. But if you're all right with hanging for a few more seconds, final, in a nutshell, words of advice to the little younger you, the little girl out there who's wanting to do what you're doing, or wanting to be successful in this field. What's your words of advice to them?
Find a source of inspiration. Find someone to look up to, and own your skills, whether you're a beginner or intermediate. If your passion is Hondas, go with it. If your passion is General Motors, go with it. and just don't give up. That's really the most of it. The word perseverance was the word that I kept with me through many, many years of trying to get through it.
Perfect. Perfectly said. I appreciate you. Cheers. And I wish you continued success in all things that you do. I think what you're doing is really exciting and really important. And I love your approach and I love your philosophy around teaching. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you for talking with me and having me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And everybody who's tuned in, thank you guys so much for tuning in and spending part of your evening with me. I'm going to get back to my vacationing now. But it was really fun joining you and hanging out with you. I appreciate everybody who tuned in for this. Make sure you come back next week. We will be doing this again next week with another awesome tradeswoman. And I think that's it. With that, I'm going to wish you guys all a fantastic rest of your week and be good to yourselves, be good to one another, and I will see you guys next week. Bye, Andrea. Thank you.
Bye.